A lot of our fear and our struggle around our voice and expressing ourselves really can be remedied by deepening our ability to receive. So I like to say that all of our offering is actually rooted in receiving. And if we're just offering without receiving, the power of our offering is limited and we will at some point deplete it. We will become dry, so to speak. Okay? So anything to do with offering, sharing our music, offering our voice, or any place where you feel stuck around that, or you feel exhausted and are trying so hard to offer your music and it just doesn't feel like it's working. So, anywhere we feel struggle or exhaustion, probably what's at the root of that is an inconsistency with receiving. Attention, all high vibe women and femme singer songwriters. It is time to step into your true artistic calling so that you can make an impact in the world with your music. Hi, I'm Emma Back, and I'm the founder of She Sings Out Loud, and it is my mission in life to help heal the ancient wounding of the feminine through my own music and by empowering you, women and femme singer-songwriters, to move away from your fear, your self-doubt, your shame, and your overwhelm to really step into your soul sound, your most authentic voice, and be able to develop that so that you can claim the stage with confidence, connect with your soulmate audience, and make an impact in the world with your music. You are watching the replay of our weekly Facebook Live show every Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. We are live in the She Sings Out Loud Sisterhood Facebook group, which you can join for free. And we also occasionally broadcast the show more publicly to the She Sings Out Loud Facebook and Instagram pages. And I do interviews with inspiring guests who are here to empower you in taking the next step with your music. And I also talk about my own journey and offer various trainings and core pieces of the She Sings Out Loud work. So I hope you will join us live in the future and enjoy this replay. Good morning, She Sings Out Loud Sisterhood. I'm so happy to be here with you today to talk about the power of receiving. So we are in this theme this month of talking about feminine superpowers. And last week we talked about surrender. And today we're talking about what I call surrender's twin sister, receiving. So before we dive in, just a couple of announcements. The Voice and Fire Retreat is open for registration. This is a deep, immersive experience. It's all virtual. It's around the solstice, and it's a really powerful time to be doing this deep work. And that is December 19th and 20th. I will put the link to that in the comments and in the description at the end of this video, but want you to have that on your radar. And Voice and Fire Retreat, we are going to work with awakening your soul sound or reawakening it, connecting to your feminine power, healing your throat and your voice blocks, songwriting from your truth, and fearless performing. So it's going to be a packed weekend in a circle of sisters. Really beautiful. I cannot wait to do this, and I hope that you will join us. So I will post that link at the end of this training. Okay, let's dive in. Let me just double check here the chat, make sure all the tech things are good. Looks like everything's working well. Okay, so receiving. Let's talk about receiving. So receiving is again a feminine wisdom quality, which means that it's not about gender. Let's just be really clear about that. Receiving and the feminine power of receiving exists in all genders. When I say feminine, it has to do with this aspect that is really about being inward and about drawing in, and it is about being over doing. So the masculine is much more about the outward and the doing and the linear and the logical, and the feminine is more about the spacious, the ethereal, the intuitive, the receptive, the surrender, drawing in, creating space, opening up, and it is a lot to do with what is unknown and what is unseen and what is mysterious. Okay, so that's what I mean we're talking about feminine wisdom qualities. So a lot of our fear and our struggle around our voice and expressing ourselves really can be remedied by deepening our ability to receive. Okay, so in our society, we are really trained, I think, especially as women, to always be for others, to always be giving, to always be offering. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's a really beautiful aspect of what we can do. And at the same time, if we're always outward, if we're always doing, giving, giving, we will at some point deplete ourselves because we have to also be able to take in. We also need to be able to draw in, to receive, to be contributed to. And there's a really powerful circle that gets created when we're connected to both receiving and offering. So I like to say that all of our offering is actually rooted in receiving. And if we're just offering without receiving, the power of our offering is limited and we will at some point deplete it. We will become dry, so to speak. Okay? So I really encourage all of my students to think about anything to do with offering, sharing our music, offering our voice, or any place where you feel stuck around that, or you feel exhausted and are trying so hard to offer your music and it just doesn't feel like it's working. So, anywhere we feel struggle or exhaustion, probably what's at the root of that is an inconsistency with receiving or a lack of fully honoring the receptive and our ability to receive. Okay, and I'll talk more about that in a moment, but that's kind of a little overview. So we've really learned to focus on this kind of performance or doing energy, and we need that to share our work, but it is disconnected from the natural cycle of giving and receiving, of breathing in and breathing out, of offering and inviting. Okay, so in this upcoming retreat, the Voice and Fire retreat, we're going to be doing some really deep work about how to shift our energy into receiving and how this can give us a whole new experience of power, confidence, and courage to share our work. So I will be teaching you the receiving practice, which is sort of the root of the She Sings Out Loud work. And not only am I going to teach it to you, but we're going to do some really deep group process so that you walk out of this retreat really masterful in receiving and have that transform so much around your ability to honor your voice and to offer your voice. Okay, so that's what you can expect from this retreat. But today, I want to just focus on the aspects of receiving and specifically how that plays out in our practice, in our songwriting and performing, but also in our life. So if you are watching live, I would love for you to just throw into the chat what you think receiving is, what you think it is, what you think it's not, and where you know that you struggle with receiving. And if you already know this, you could put that too. If you know where that's impacting your ability to really be confident in offering your voice, you could put that into the chat too. Okay, so I'll just keep my eye on it and see if we have any insights. As always, this is a discussion. This is a two-way conversation. I really think that as women, we are discovering this together. This is a relatively new conversation to return to the root of feminine wisdom. So I would love to know what you think about this and any insights you have so that we can just keep growing and deepening together. Okay, so if you also, I should say, if you're watching the replay of this, you can absolutely post in the comments on the She Sings Out Loud blog, or if you're watching inside our Facebook, our She Sings Out Loud sisterhood group, you can throw it into the comments. You can also always email me or tag me on Instagram at She Sings Out Loud and just let me know what you think about receiving. Okay, so let's talk first about what receiving is not, because we tend to, because we have this really patriarchal society that has devalued feminine wisdom, it is really easy to kind of get confused about these wisdom aspects, because in order to kind of suppress the feminine and disempower the feminine, we've sort of turned them into negative aspects, if that makes sense, or negative ways of thinking about this. So it gets confused with other things that are not powerful, and receiving is a superpower. Let's just be really clear on that. Okay, so what receiving is not, it's not passive. It's not weak. It's not selfish. It's not taking. That's a really important one, because you think receiving and taking, this is where we really confuse. The selfish one and the taking one, we get really confused. We think that those are similar, but it is not selfish, it's not taking, and it's not automatic. So let's unpack that a little bit. So it's not passive because it actually takes intention to receive. If you're just walking out there in your life and you're not really paying attention, chances are you're probably not receiving. Or if you are a little bit, you're not maybe receiving fully what is really offered or what is possible. Okay, so it really takes intention and putting our awareness there. Therefore, it's not passive. Okay, it's not really a doing either, which is kind of interesting, but it's definitely not passive. It's really a way of being that has awareness and intention behind it. So our default is to reject and not receive, right? That's the default, to reject and not receive. So it actually takes real intention, as I've said, to really receive. It's not weak. Again, it's not weak because it takes this intention. It takes really coming into our power, into our strength. It takes a willingness to receive, to go beyond that default of rejecting and avoiding the intimacy and connection that comes with receiving. So, intimacy, connection takes strength and takes willpower. So, therefore, it cannot be weak. Receiving is not selfish because it's connected. You cannot receive in isolation. Okay, selfish implies that we are self-isolating, that we are in our own container, that we are, again, sort of rejecting the outside world, that we're self-absorbed. But it actually takes opening up to connection, which in and of itself is a gesture of generosity. So it is not selfish to receive. And you cannot have offering, true, fully empowered, fully heart-centered, fully aligned, fully aware, complete offering of your gifts or of anything that you offer without also receiving, because they are in union and they are a cycle. So when we receive and we actually allow ourselves to receive, we are in fact empowering ourselves to contribute more. So therefore, it cannot be selfish. Receiving is not taking because you can't receive what isn't offered. Okay, so taking is maybe akin sometimes to stealing. Like, I'm just going to go get that because I see it and I want it and I'm just going to take it. That's not receiving. Receiving, again, is opening up to connection and opening up to your awareness of what is offered and choosing to allow that in or not allow it in, which, by the way, is also powerful. We're going to get into that. Okay, so choosing to allow it in or not. So you cannot receive what is not being offered. So therefore, it's not taking. Okay, so receiving literally means to allow in that which is offered. And I'm going to add to that that when you are rooted in receiving, you're empowered in receiving, you also can choose to not allow in what is offered. This is really important because another thing that receiving is not is a giving up of your agency. Let's be very, very clear on that. Just like surrender is also not about giving up your agency. Okay, receiving is an exchange, an allowing. It's about connection. It's part of the cycle of offering. It is a resource, a wisdom, and a support. What it takes to receive is surrender. And if you haven't yet watched last week's video on surrender, I teach you a meditation to help you work with the energy of surrender, which is kind of a foundation to being able to receive. Okay, so I invite you to look at that, and especially if you're going to come to our Voice and Fire retreat, to be practicing this surrender practice before we dive into the receiving practice can be really powerful. Okay, so check that out. It's on this inside the Facebook group, or it's at shesingsoutloud.com/blog/120620 for December 6th when it got posted. Okay, so what it takes to receive, it takes surrender. I already said this, it takes willpower and strength, right? That's why it can't be weak. So it takes willpower and strength. It takes ease. That's kind of connected to surrender. We can't be in a place of force and self-aggression in order to receive. So it takes a sense of ease. It takes connection. It takes openness. It takes flexibility, permission. That's a key one as well, right? Because it's not about giving up your agency. It takes permission. And it takes the intuitive part of yourself. It takes intuition. And I would say also, it takes inspiration, right? Like there has to be some reason to receive, something that we're inspired by, something that feels possible in order for us to really do this work, which is not easy to receive. Okay, so I don't know if you're paying attention to this or if it would stand out to you if you're not looking at the graphic that shows this. But basically, I just named a lot of the aspects inside of our Voice and Fire retreat. So, Voice and Fire, V for vulnerability, O for openness, I for intuition, C for connection, and E for embodiment. Okay, and then fire is F for fearless, and I would say it also takes fearlessness to receive. It takes a lot of courage for sure. So F for fearlessness, I for inspiration, R for radiant, and E for ease. That's our voice and fire. So a lot of these words are in that. And I would say that when you are receiving, that's when you become radiant. And that's how you attract your soulmate audience. And that's the work we're going to be doing in the Voice and Fire retreat. Okay, so let's talk about receiving specifically in the context of your music. So, where do you receive from, and what do you receive from, specifically in music? So, when you're writing a song, you receive from the song. Or we could say you receive the song, both, okay? So you receive from your intuition, you receive from your soul sound, your spirit guides, your musical influences, from the skills and techniques that you've developed and honed for years, and from all that inspires you, including a beautiful walk in nature, including a lovely meal with friends, which we can't do a lot of right now, but even your little drink dates on Zoom, all of the things that fill you up and inspire you come into your songwriting process. So when we're talking about songwriting, you're receiving from all of that, and that gets channeled through your whole body, through your being, through all of your skills and techniques, and then comes out into the world through this song. And you could even say then that when you're performing, you're receiving from the song. So when you're first writing, you're receiving from all these things and the song is created. And then as you continue to perform, rehearse, or to continue to write the song, like maybe you receive the first part and then you actually drop in and you receive what you already wrote to give you the influence and inspiration for what comes next. Okay, so receiving is really, really important for songwriting that is deeply authentic, that is connected to your soul sound, that is a true expression of what you have to say and to offer into the world. So when you're performing, you receive from a couple of places. You receive, as I said, from the music. You're receiving that and letting it move through you and up and out of you. And you also receive from your audience. So you receive the love and attention of your audience. And if you're blocking that love and attention, that's where stage fright comes from. So you might not believe me because this is kind of tricky to understand until you've really done the work. But hopefully you can have some inkling of this. You've seen some aspect in yourself that when you actually are open to receiving that love and attention, your stage fright literally disappears. And I've seen that in myself and in my students. When they fully learn to receive all the trepidation about sharing, about being good enough, about being judged, that goes away because you're connected. So this is what learning the receiving practice does for you. And again, that's the work that we're going to be doing in the retreat in 2 weeks. So when you are practicing, you're receiving input from your body, from your soul sound, from your teachers, from your mentors, and from your habits. So again, this is where the more we're empowered in receiving, the more we can actually cultivate the habits that serve, or we can choose to receive the habit that serves and choose to reject the habit that isn't serving. So when we're empowered in receiving, we actually have choice as to how we operate and what we receive from. So when you're practicing, you're receiving all of that, and that gets channeled into your music and into your skills. And this is really important because in practice, we can get so focused on the doing, so focused on the perfectionism, and get tighter and tighter and tighter in our body, in our mind, in our whole being. And that's this kind of vicious cycle. When we actually open up to receive, then we are more spacious and we're more clear about how to practice in a way that gives us joy and actually moves us forward to express the thing that we want to express. So practice is aligned with our deepest desire, our deepest joy, and our deepest ability to offer. So let's go back for a moment to this aspect that I talked about, where receiving does not mean receiving everything. It's really, really important. I'll say it again and again that receiving is not about giving up your agency. If you are in a situation where you feel that your agency is being taken away, then potentially empowering yourself in receiving could help you to set some really clear boundaries and to say no. So being empowered in our no has everything to do with receiving. So receiving does not mean receive everything. It means being very, very clear about what we're open to receive and what we're not, and having very clear literal communication and physical communication around that. Okay? Energetic communication around that. So receiving does not mean receiving from everything. When we are empowered in receiving, we're deeply connected to the wisdom force within us and to our ability to receive and be very, very clear about those boundaries. Okay, now, of course, we all know we can end up in situations where we don't have agency and we don't have choice. Okay, that happens, and I'm very, very sorry for each and every one of you who has been in that situation. Most of us have at some point in our lives. It is what we are dealing with as women, as femme people. So I'm not saying that this is somehow going to solve all the issues around agency and around women having agency. But I am saying that if you do the work around receiving, you may find yourself in a stronger place, in a place of power to be able to work with that situation during and after. Okay, so I think this is really, really important for us to work with as a way to restore ourselves to power, to choice, and to agency. Okay, so I just felt it like it was really important to say that. So it starts with the practice of receiving. So we can't be powerful in not receiving and creating that boundary if we haven't learned to work this muscle of receiving. So I really encourage each and every one of you to consider this and to work with it and to see how it shows up in your life and see if it gets easier to set really clear boundaries around what doesn't serve and what you're not willing to take in when you start to work with receiving. Okay, and we're also going to be doing some of that work inside of the retreat. So receiving has to be cultivated. It's something in our culture that we have often learned to block. So this is how women's power has been taken away. It's not only has there been many outer circumstances, but there has been a lot to repress and confuse these energetic wisdom superpowers. Okay, so receiving has to be reawakened inside of us and cultivated. It's about returning to our natural superpower. Okay, so just like anything that we practice, we can practice receiving. So this is my invitation to you today, is to look at your life and to really consider where you are not open to receiving and where you've blocked receiving energy and how you can work with that. And then I also encourage you to consider your boundaries. Where are the places where you can see that you haven't been empowered in receiving because you haven't known how to say, hell no. This came from some of my students. We love to say this. We love to say, hell no, which is also connected to yes, I receive, and hell no, I don't receive. So I want you to just look at your life and see where these things are in play. Where could you deepen your experience of receiving and say yes to the things that serve without all of the funny self talk that it's somehow selfish or it's weak or it's passive, but you could really see it as a strength and a power and something that gives you more ability to offer in a much bigger way, okay, and contribute what you're truly meant to contribute in this lifetime, okay? And then look at your boundaries and where you can say, hell no. This also is where we can be really powerful with the judgment or the criticism that doesn't serve, and we can say, hell no. We can say, I hear this criticism because it actually serves me to grow, and hell no to this because that feels like a projection or it's coming from someone who doesn't understand me, and I'm choosing to say no. Okay, so that's one aspect of looking at it. And then I'd love for you to take this on inside of your music specifically. So the next time you're practicing or you're writing a song or you're performing, mostly online probably these days, if you could just start to consider, how can I receive more? How can I allow myself to receive in this process and open up and expand? And if you want to learn this practice in particular and do some really powerful exercises and work around mastering receiving, then please come to the Voice and Fire virtual solstice retreat on December 19th and 20th. We're going to reawaken your soul sound. We're going to connect you to your feminine power, heal your throat and voice blocks. We're going to do some songwriting from receiving and from your truth and connecting to your soul sound. And we're going to work on fearless performing and using the receiving practice to become fully self-expressed and unleashed in your voice and really fearless about putting yourself out there in any way you do that, whether it's actually on a stage, on a virtual stage, or releasing a song, or any way you share your music. We're going to do some really deep work around that and connect you to the magic of receiving. Okay, that's all I have for you for today. The last announcement is that the From Closet Singer Songwriter to Powerful Performer 90-day program waitlist is now open. The next program starts January 17th, and we're opening the waitlist through the end of the year, and we're going to be offering a special to people that are on the waitlist. So I'll throw that link as well into the show notes and into the comments here and into the description. And you can click on that link and get on the waitlist, and we will be in touch. So much love to you. I can't wait to hear how receiving goes for you this week. Please share what you're noticing in your life, how it's affecting your life and your music. And I will see you next week.